For today's main topic, we're going to be critiquing a very common example that financial influencers, financial gurus, financial advisors, financial coaches use to explain opportunity cost. And we're going to be digging into the way that it makes us feel, and we're going to dig into what does this mean for our relationship with money, and is it an example that's actually productive? To get started, we're going to consider a CNBC clip featuring Suze Orman. Now, I'm not a big fan of Suze Orman or her work, and I could get into that for other reasons, but that's beside the point. What I want to share with you is what she said here in this clip. Pay close attention to the point she's trying to make.
It would be one thing if you had a cup of coffee once a week, maybe 3 times a month, but that's not what you do.
I got to point out for those of you who are listening on audio only that on the bottom of Suze Orman's name, they dropped her Twitter so that you could reach out to her there, and it had the old Twitter logo. So you know this is an older video than the last couple months.
You go in every single day. It's a ritual. It's part of your day. And you spend $1 to $3 on a cup of coffee, which is approximately $100 a month. An example, $100 a month in a Roth IRA over 40 years is $1 million.
Now, the math that she's doing here is not wrong. The math is solid. And after we get through this little video, I'll show you how you can verify her math.
So you need to think about it as you are peeing $1 million down the drain after you're drinking that coffee. Do you really want to do that? No. Can you just make coffee at home? Every single penny counts. It's not a need, it is a want.
Now, I got to stop here and say, she mentions that you make the coffee at home as opposed to getting it out at a Starbucks or a coffee shop. The point she's trying to make is, well, you have a spending habit that has an equal opportunity cost, arguably, of $1 million 40 years from now. However, what's the opportunity cost of making the coffee at home? Well, it's not the same amount of money you're still spending on a habit. So you fall into a little bit of a slippery slope. Where do we draw the line from little expenses on our day-to-day? Where do we draw the line and say, the opportunity cost for this isn't great enough? You give any particular example enough time at the right interest rate, and you're going to say, oh, this is costing you your whole financial future.
Peeps, if you just simply used your money to purchase needs versus wants, you would find the money to invest in your retirement accounts. You would find the money to get yourself out of credit card debt. You are just really wasting money.
She says here, if you spend on your needs and not your wants, you're going to have enough money to save up for retirement or pay off your debt. But it's a little more nuanced than that. We can't give up every want and say no to every want in our life. We are called to spend, save, and give. And part of that is going to be enjoying the money that we earn. To do otherwise could be detrimental to our human psychology. Now, there is a balance that we need to approach, and it's not good to spend on wants in a way that sacrifices our future. But what we don't want to say is by spending on any want, regardless of how expensive that want is, I'm killing my financial future. There are ways we can have our coffee and drink it too. Next, we're going to watch a little bit of a video from a YouTube channel called How Money Works. And I think this particular creator has done an excellent job compiling examples where the coffee opportunity cost example is heavily utilized.
Instead, just put that $3 to $5 you're spending every day on coffee into a Roth IRA and let that compound over the next 40 years in an index fund. You'd have over $1 million. Now, how does that make you feel that your daily cup of coffee is leaving $1 million on the table?
Never do I do that. Never. That's such a waste of money for something that costs 20 cents.
Spending more money on coffee than you do on retirement is ridiculous.
A 2022 survey conducted by the Lending Club Bank found that more than a third of people earning over $250,000 a year were living paycheck to paycheck. And if someone earning 4 to 5 times the national average can't get ahead, then what hope do the rest of us have? A popular trend amongst financial influencers is to blame people's poor personal money situations on small but repetitive purchases, with the number one target being coffees. I mean, seriously, it feels like anybody that has ever posted a video about how to make $100 a day in the current year with little to no experience or trade stock options for a profit seems to hate coffees as much as they hate the efficient market hypothesis.
So what we can see from that clip from how money works is that the coffee example is heavily utilized even with the exact same numbers that Suze used. $100 a month for 40 years invested in a Roth IRA at I think it was 10%. Next, what I want to do is show you how you can verify the numbers in that particular example. And that's going to be by using a retirement calculator. You can find a whole bunch of them for free online. The particular one that I have here, if you're able to watch the video, is from Ramsey. It's ramseysolutions.com. He has a retirement calculator. Now, there's going to be a little input over here on the side, and we want to make sure that it's 40 years. So we're going to just make it easy. I'm going to say that I'm 20 now, and I'm going to be 60 later. How much money do you currently have in investments? To make the example work with the coffee, let's assume I haven't bought any coffee yet, and I don't have anything invested from having given up the coffee. Next, it says how much are you going to contribute monthly? In the example, they talked about doing $100 a month given the average-ish cup of coffee at Starbucks. I'm going to say right in the middle of what Ramsey has. He says the S&P 500 has been roughly 10 to 12%. We'll do 11 right in the middle, and we'll hit calculate. While using these inputs, what we end up with is $860,000 in retirement. That's not quite the $1 million that Suze Orman promised us. I'm sure if we tweak this a little bit, we could see what it is. Let's say if we did 11.5. There we go. They must be using 11.5 as that is just over $1 million. Now, just to show you how sensitive this interest rate is as I fiddle with it, if I type in 10% into the calculator, the coffee habit, the opportunity cost of the coffee habit is $632,000. That's a huge swing. That's going to be probably half of what it would be if I typed in 12%. 12% gets me almost $1.2 million. So the math roughly checks out if you're a little aggressive with the interest rate, but I want to point something out that's pretty funny. If I scroll down on the calculator here, there's a nice little graph, and that's great. It shows us where we are with the retirement, and it shows the growth of the portfolio over the years and gives some other fun information. But underneath that graph is a nice little what if, and it says, what if I gave up daily coffee purchases? It's the example right in the middle. And Dave Ramsey's website assumes that your coffee habit costs you specifically $128 a month. And it says that if you added another $128 to your investment, instead of doing coffee, you get $1.444 million in additional growth. So even Dave Ramsey and his website with this calculator can't escape using this particular example that coffee is costing you your retirement future. And I mentioned it before when I was reacting to the Suze Orman clip. We run into a slippery slope when we say, well, you got to give up this particular habit, this very popular, socially acceptable habit with little expenses day after day, because the opportunity cost is huge. But we could do that with absolutely anything. And the opportunity cost of coffee doesn't necessarily have to be investing for retirement. It could be anything. When I was talking about the Buzz Lightyear costume in the story, the opportunity cost that I gave as an example was a knife set and a TV. But I could have chosen anything that cost less than $90 as my opportunity cost. So how am I to know what my opportunity cost actually applies to? Dan Arley has a quote that covers this point. The problem with opportunity cost is that opportunity cost is divided among many, many things. Every decision we make has trade-offs, and all of these trade-offs are absolutely infinite. And when we start digging into this rabbit hole of, oh, I can't do that because it's going to cost me too much in retirement, and we weigh it heavily on that, or we try to consider every possible opportunity cost for every decision we make, we're going to be suffering from paralysis of the analysis. We're going to end up stunting our ability to make decisions and preventing us from enjoying our spending and saving and giving that we can execute today and possibly cost us the future if we're victim to paralysis of the analysis. What's to stop us from considering the infinite amount of opportunity cost when it comes to building a retirement portfolio? Now, that's not to say that opportunity cost is a bad thing. I personally love the idea of considering opportunity cost, but we need to get over the problem of infinite comparisons. And we need to not feel bad every time we pursue a want, even a little one. I mean, Suze Orman's words, if I took them for granted, and even some of the words at the start of the How Money Works clip, I don't want to have to carry the emotional baggage of my future is disappearing every time I buy a want. So what's the real solution here? We need to not just take every possible opportunity cost into account. We need to take the practical opportunity cost into account. We need to take your opportunity cost into account. What would be the thing that you would do if you didn't have the money? Imagine you gave up your coffee habit. If you have one, you give it up. What would you actually spend the money on? Would you pursue a different type of habit? Would you end up absorbing that saved money in another lifestyle expense? Would you actually save it? Would you pay it down on debt? Would you use it to save up for another want that is important to you? Or if you're not running a budget, do you know where that money would actually go? Speaking of budgets, that's the beauty of the zero-based budget. If you assign every single dollar emission in your zero-based budget and you decide to cut something out, say the coffee, say $5 a day, or roughly the $100 a month, you get to say, where do I put that $100-some this month? I have to assign it to another category. Well, as you look through your options on your budget, you're going to be thinking of your goals, you're going to be thinking of your priorities, you're going to be thinking about where you are in your financial journey, and you're going to apply that $100-odd-some accordingly. That is the comparison. What you're going to pick instead of the coffee, that is the opportunity cost that you need to be considering, because it is the actual decision that you're trading off, the next best thing to the coffee. Furthermore, investing the money that you would save by not spending money on coffee may not be the best decision for you. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, the next thing you probably need to do if you're kicking a coffee habit in order to have a little extra room in your budget is save up a starter emergency fund. And if you already have a starter emergency fund, you might be setting up appropriate, updated insurance policies to protect you and defer the risk that you can't afford to take on right now. And if you already have that in place, you might be paying off your debt. You might be running a debt snowball, paying off your debts, smallest to largest. If you're debt-free, you have all of that in place. You might need a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. And after that point, after you've been able to do that, well, now we can talk about investing, but it might also be prudent for you to be considering saving up for a home down payment. There are a lot of different decisions that you could make that aren't just investing in that Roth IRA. So we know that a budget can free us from the complexity of opportunity cost. It can prevent us from having paralysis of the analysis. And what really matters is when we're running our monthly budget, asking ourselves, are we making healthy progress on the big financial priority I need to have in the HopeFilled Financial Footsteps, available on the homepage of HopeFilledFinancial.com. More or less, I was running down the first few HopeFilled Financial Footsteps as I went through that list of potential uses for an extra $100 a month. Now, as we wrap up, I want you to think about this. If you are writing a budget and you say, I am on footstep 1, I'm on footstep 2, 3, or 4. Let's say you're on the one where you're saving up for an emergency fund, and you say, I need to have my fully funded emergency fund established in 3 months from now. That's really what I want to do. You know where you are, you know how much further you got to get, you know how much you need to set aside in order to achieve that goal. And while I want you to be running and sprinting toward that goal, you can see in your budget whether or not you're on pace. And if there's any extra wiggle room, you can probably afford to give yourself some sort of want. If you're saving up for retirement, if you're trying to set aside enough for retirement, you can sit down, run the numbers, figure out how much you need to be investing each month in order to have a healthy retirement, to be able to retire with dignity. If you know that number and you're putting that number aside, you're debt-free, you have your emergency fund, you're investing, and you still have discretionary income to buy coffee, well, guess what? The $1 million, $1.4 million of opportunity cost isn't the opportunity cost of the coffee, because you're probably not going to go and put that extra money in retirement. You would have something totally different you would spend it on. And while I don't know the exact decision you'd make, you probably aren't wanting to oversave for retirement. You want to enjoy some of your money today. And that's why I think that this particular example, the coffee example, is ultimately unhealthy. It makes you feel bad when the genuine opportunity cost is not talked about, the actual decision-making process and the focus on what can help you really hone opportunity cost appropriately, a monthly budget. Now, next week on the HopeFilled Financial Podcast, we're going to be discussing withdrawal strategies, the 4 types of things that you can prioritize in retirement and what it means for your retirement portfolio and your retirement withdrawal strategy. I'm really excited to share this incredibly valuable topic with you because it's something that I just don't think that we talk about or consider enough in our society. Be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss it. But until then, until next Tuesday, budget bravely and enjoy your hope-filled financial future.